What's up, my Beardos and Weirdos? One topic here. And we're getting back to a subreddit we haven't touched on in a while, which is r/ProRevenge. We're going over two stories today. The first story is about an employee who gets revenge against his employer and the CEO. And the second story is about a guy whose wife leaves him and lies, and he also includes a cute picture of a cat. Alright, let's jump right into it. CEO voids verbal agreement? Enjoy the new union. Hey all, this is a long story which spans several years, but I look back at the outcome with fondness. 25 years ago, I worked 7 nights a week as a driver, subcontracted to the local newspaper, to deliver bundles to stores and carriers. At 18, I was the youngest driver with his own route, having first been brought in by a family friend when I was 16 as a spare driver, then moving up. My days were at college studying comp sci or working computer repair jobs.
Verbal agreement gets voided.
The rural route I was offered had the greatest number of kilometers with a relatively lower number of newspapers compared to other routes. I made an agreement with the manager, bought a heavy-duty cargo van which had been converted to run on propane, far cheaper back then got to work. Most other trucks would not have made a profit doing this route. After several months on the job, I was called into the office by the CEO of distribution company, who was mad that I'd been getting paid more for my kilometers in comparison to the other in-city routes. The manager backed me up, saying he had okayed the rate to balance out the longer hours with fewer bundles. The CEO yelled at the manager in front of the whole office and asked if there was a signed contract to state the agreed terms. When the manager admitted it was a verbal contract, the CEO said it then didn't count and was void.
I get organized.
Stuck with having to pay off the cargo van, and I really did enjoy the job itself, I kept at it. But documented everything, including all negotiations, calls asking for me to come in early, requests to set the order of my route, times waiting at press, times entering, leaving loading bay, who was before and after me, route completion times, return home times, fuel costs, kilometers driven, and press breakdowns. 6 months later, I wanted to take some time off, but was refused. None of the company's spares would agree to do my route since it cost them too much in time and fuel. Working 7 nights a week gets draining. I threatened to quit, and the company relented, agreeing to pay the spares more, but not me. This situation made me madder than ever, and I started reading. I get organized. I learned of the magical difference between a dependent and an independent contractor, and how a dependent contractor is granted many of the same rights as employees, like overtime and holiday pay. I knew this was a temporary job for me, but I was pissed enough to devote a large amount of my time to make the owner pay. I filed a comprehensive personal employment standards complaint using all of those records I've been keeping. Plus, I offered my records to around 10 other drivers who followed my lead into filing their own complaints. Key part of my records was proving how much control the company had on how we performed our jobs. Talk of unionizing was always in the background, but it was at this point I joined the cause with fervor. We attracted one of the country's largest unions who devoted a fair amount of resources to backing us even before they were voted in. My records went to the union, who referred to them consistently. Because I had years of spare experience, I also had in-depth knowledge of how many of the other routes and the lopsided pay. I helped convince several of the other drivers to join up, including some of the spares. Forming a union is a long process, so beware there were multiple votes interspersed with the events below, with each vote favoring the union position. There were also several other enthusiastic organizers who were tired of how things were.
The company fights back.
The company played hardball and went after us on multiple fronts. A number of the union-friendly spares were fired, drivers lost their routes due to strategic amalgamations, and I was let go under the excuse that I had less seniority than the CEO's son-in-law, who had worked as a spare a couple of times over the last few years. My own departure didn't last long. The newspaper itself demanded I be put back on my route following major problems and delays from the son-in-law doing it, bad drops, loads of complaints by carriers and customers. The union filed complaints to the labor board, calling it obvious union busting. I filed a complaint to the Employment Standards Tribunal, which had been set up for my personal case. Since the company had been playing the seniority card, it was determined I had greater seniority than a number of company men, given that I had worked as a spare since I was 16. The labor board said I should be given the opportunity to bump any of those with less seniority and take their route. Both the company and union asked me not to pursue this if I agreed to an immediate increase to my current route and to be paid for all days I missed. I agreed.
Negotiations pay off.
Now, 2 years later from the start of my story, negotiations were still ongoing, but several interim agreements had been reached. A universal pay algorithm was agreed on, with drivers receiving back pay to when the negotiations started. I received one of the biggest checks. One thing I did not agree to was let the union negotiate away my employment standards complaint. I was the lone holdout here, so as such I had equal standing in some labor board tribunals with CEO and union negotiators. I will always relish the disdain the CEO had for me at those meetings, to the point of placing his briefcase on the negotiation table to block my view of him, and reclining back ever so slowly in those nice comfy chairs to grin at him while offering water. The Employment Standards Tribunal determined I was a dependent contractor. They awarded me everything I had asked for and more, including penalties and interest. They made a point to mention how egregiously the company had behaved after the complaint had first been submitted. The dependent contractor determination greatly strengthened the union's position for future negotiations.
I move on to my career and steak.
I quit shortly afterwards, since I had finished with college and was full into the tech world. It did take a couple more years for the company to finally agree to pay the full amount awarded. The CEO delayed it as long as he could. Every few months, I refused lowball settlement offers. That final check with its personal signature paid off my student loans and a steak dinner. TLDR, CEO voids a verbal agreement, I get documenting, get fired, get rehired, win employment standards case, and help bring in a union. I also eat steak. Oh, P, damn. Way to be supportive of all your coworkers. That's amazing. So not only was this revenge on behalf of you, but it was also on behalf of everyone else that was affected by this. Good on you for sticking it to the man. I hope anyone else who hears this story can also learn a few things about how you might need to stand up for yourselves at your jobs. Thanks for sharing, OP. Wife left me, lied about me, I got revenge. Initially posted to r/confession, but someone said it fits here. My wife decided to take a week-long break about a month and a half ago. She said it had nothing to do with me, she just needed some time on her own. I let her go, and encouraged her even. I only wanted what was best for her. The very next day, she started posting on social media, saying a bunch of things like, I love the wrong person, and you deserve someone that supports you, etc. Standing on the outside, it's easy to assume I did something wrong here, but honestly, I'm a romantic pushover. I gave 110% into making sure the love of my life had everything. Here's the revenge bit. She asked for a divorce and has been making baseless lies about me to everyone I know over the last month and a half. Well, 2 weeks ago, she got laid off and has been collecting unemployment. I just finished filing a form to report her for fraud since she's working 2 jobs under the table that pay more than her previous job and collecting unemployment on top of it. I also made sure to get her to text me details about said jobs and screen capped them. Legally, I know I'm in the right, but it's still a shizzy, vindictive thing to do. But honestly, I feel so good for screwing her over, knowing she won't be able to afford the house that she kicked me out of anymore. Edit, for those concerned about my cat, I can't take him. No pet policy at my current residence, but he will live on forever thanks to the internet. Say hello to Tobias. Aww, look at that cat. Wait a second. No pet policy at my current residence, but he will live on forever thanks to the internet? Are you adopting him out or are you putting him down? Jeez. What? Alright, I was on your side till I read that. I mean, avoiding the obvious, if everything was going well she would have stuck around comments, I really think a month and a half might have been too quick for her to start filing for divorce, for her to start pushing you away that hard. I feel like if someone wants some time to separate, to think things over and collect themselves, they might need some space to do that. Hopefully you gave them that space, and if she's still retaliated this way, she's an odd duck. Probably for the best that you're getting out of that. And good for you for being able to get some revenge in the process. Thanks for sharing that story, OP. Alright, my Beardos and Weirdos, I hope you enjoyed another r/ProRevenge. Keep an eye out for our next few videos. I know I've got some exciting ones coming out in the future. I've edited some pretty cool ones. And let me know in the comments below what you want to see done next. A lot of the ones I've been doing recently have just been on request, so happy to keep doing them. You keep sharing these videos and let me know what you like. Alright, my Beardos and Weirdos, we'll see you in the next video, where we take it one topic at a time.